Um,
Ben,
Stephen,
yeah,
is that, when you say in the shop, is that in the upstairs, setting up the lathe in the upstairs space that you showed us in the last meeting?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you're interested in helping out, I think Ben would be the one to contact about that.
Okay.
We have some good, go ahead.
Stephen, I came in late and I apologize. With the election yesterday, I just worn out and kind of just relaxed all day here. I forgot about the meeting tonight. So I missed the first couple of minutes. And I didn't know if the mention of our paying dues.
That was next on the item.
Okay.
No, you didn't miss any of the business. We did show and tell first tonight so that we could have enough people for the quorum. We have good news for the dues. We've cut it down to $30 a year, and that's payable now to John Kelsey, our treasurer. We'd like that in the form of a check, and he'll send you a receipt for that. So it's $30 for the next year.
I will send you a name tag that has a background, has the logo that we're using in a different wood background for 2021 that you can keep even if we don't ever have an actual in-person meeting, as well as a receipt, and you can mail me a check, and I'm going to put my street address in the chat.
Thank you. And maybe included in the email that you send out follow-up?
I don't send a follow-up to this meeting, but I think
Okay.
Barry does. If Barry sends a meeting follow-up, yes, we can do that, of course.
Yeah,
Okay.
why don't you do that, Barry? Thank you.
So John, I just got to ask for the sake of it, does the mail have to have a certain postal date to be valid, or do you
Do you imagine that I
Turn
would
your TV off.
be tangled up in something like that? No, there is a deadline, actually. Last year it went well out into March and April on collecting dues, and this year we're starting to collect dues in November in the hope we can get done with it by the end of January. If anyone would like to PayPal, get in touch with me and I'll give you a PayPal and I'll deal with that, whatever you want to do. I also can do Venmo, whatever that is.
I'm sorry, and the check gets made out to
Lancaster area woodturners. We have a bank
Gotcha.
account in that name. Yeah.
Yep.
And I will, wait a minute.
As in the lettering behind you.
Yeah. 17601, but it will put it in the chat, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, it's there in the chat. Barry can send it out, and yeah, and I will send you a receipt. And while I have the floor here, the treasurer's report is we have $2,943.42 in the bank at the moment.
Wow.
Well, if we go ahead next year with equipping ourselves for hybrid meetings, where some participants are on Zoom and some are on TV, we'll be spending a chunk of that.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a good segue into needing a vote on that. John, what was the reasoning for the club to get a club license for 100?
Yes, I'm sorry, I meant to report on that as well. Right now, it's all this year we've been using my own Zoom license, which costs $150 a year, and which I pay for in another activity. But that means that I'm the only one with the log on. I'm the only one who schedules meetings, and that's not going to work for the club long term. So we formed a video or an online committee to hold our club's resources in this zone, and we're saying that the club needs to buy its own Zoom license to go forward. The cost is $150 a year, and as it's over $100, it needs to come to a vote here. So I so move we spend $150 so the club can have a Zoom license. We will set up an email. The Zoom committee will take care of setting up an email and managing it, and so that multiple people have it and can schedule meetings on everyone's behalf.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Everybody in favor, put up your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, you get that, John?
Yeah. Any opposed?
Any opposed?
All right, thank
Oh,
you.
okay, very
Thank-
good.
Thank you very much. I'll be calling a meeting of the online committee within the week, and that'll be me and Doug and Mike Junkerth and any of you who'd like to get involved in that. We will be managing the Thursday morning coffee hour. We will start to get control of the number of communications we send all in a week, and we will get a hold of the website and begin to develop it further than it is. Mike's been handling it very well for us. There's already a lot of stuff on there. We got a lot more stuff we can put up. Okay.
Okay, very good.
And we've all, and John, you and I have also been doing videos of people's shops and stuff like that for sharing. So as part of that, is if there's anybody in the club that we haven't approached who'd like your shop shown, I'm not sure we're going to travel out to central Pennsylvania or some of the further distance ones. Sorry about that, Mark. But
Well, we sooner or later probably will. We've been to about 6 or 7 shops so far. We've
Yeah.
shown 3 or 4 of them on the coffee hour, and they're available through the Lancaster area woodturners.org website. And as we show them on coffee hour, we'll post them there. The ones we've seen already is Bill Tatkowski and Ted and Angelo. And next we're going to do Bob Gocknauer and Ron and Keith Louderback and Ben. And we will get around to all of you sooner or later. It's quite fun. We come visit you for about an hour and we ask you questions and make you show us your wood stash and your turning setup and let you talk. It's fun.
Yeah, Doug, you don't want to see mine.
I've seen yours.
I got one of those too.
you'll notice I have also made sure nobody's been filming mine just so far yet either. So
Okay, the next subject, I'm going to turn to Ben, and he'll tell us about a possible joint demo with Susquehanna Woodturners. Ben, what's being proposed there?
Well, I talked to Troy. Troy has Ed Purdy. I had never heard of him, but I looked him up on his website. He's from Vancouver, and he looked like he's pretty good. And he does what they're going to demo is a surface preparation, use of wood compatible dyes, ebonizing, bleaching, ebonizing, fuming, liming, using both traditional lime wax and acrylic paint and faux painting techniques. It's going to be a length of 2 hours plus. The date is Saturday, December the 5th. And the cost to us is going to be $120 for 30 people.
that's the cost of the woodturn to the Lancaster area woodturners.
Yes.
Let me say that the whole club could go on that because I think about 12 of us are cross members with Susquehanna and we can go on that membership. So what that means is everyone in the club could go if we wanted to, or if they all wanted to.
Okay. Is that a topic that's interesting to the club members? If so, we'll need to vote yes on spending those funds because our bylaws need us to ask for your permission to spend any money over $100. So is this something that you would want the club to spend our money on? If you would agree with that, would you raise your hand, please?
Yeah.
Okay, those opposed? Hands up. I can't see the whole gallery here, so.
I don't see any opposed. If anyone's opposed,
Okay.
sing out. Thank you. There may have been a
Okay,
couple
so
of
that's passed. Okay, that was one of our longer business sessions and we're done that.
And John, just one more thing, John, that Troy's going to talk to you tomorrow at the coffee hour about what we decide, because he has to get on this as soon
Yep.
as he can.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is there any other item of business that we need to be talking about?
Yeah, I do, Steve.
Yeah,
I wanted to mention that next month, by the bylaws, we have our election of officers. And we've had the good fortune that Matt Kalareski has agreed to stand for president. And I am happy to, I should say, serve another 2 years as secretary. And so if anybody else wishes to stand for one of those two positions, please contact me before the December meeting. Otherwise, we look forward to a new year with 2 new members on the executive committee. That's it.
and Barry, thank you for your dedication to the polls.
I'm hard to change.
Okay, so yes, we are very glad that Matt has agreed to stand for president. But again, if anybody else would like to run alongside of him, the floor is open for that. Okay, now we handed it. Oh, any more business?
Well, Steve, I did want to say about our shop over there. I set those 2 lathes up that we have, and they're just sitting there. There's nobody using them. There's nobody around. The shop is always open, probably from like 7 to 5 every day. If anybody would want to go over and use them, if they don't have a lathe at home, or if they just, we got a lot of wood over there, little pieces that if somebody wants to practice, and I think the space is open, the lathe are there. They should be used if we can.
It's a kind offer. So anybody who wants to use the club lathe over at the Kaufman factory can go between 7 and
They're usually till 5, probably.
5. Okay.
I'm assuming, Ben, if somebody does want to go use I assume folks at the factory wouldn't mind having you check in at the office or something just to say you're using it, would you?
No, it wouldn't. I don't know if if somebody would contact me, just text me or something, say, hey, I'm going over to the shop.
That's what I mean. Just so you guys know that somebody's actually in there legitimately from the club.
Somebody should, yeah, somebody should know. But if somebody just texts me,
okay,
I'm going to use the lathe for a couple hours,
thank you.
I had one item of business.
Yes.
I had sent an email and asked about the monthly club challenge. So we used to do that, and it was a good way to get folks from the club in their shop around the United project. And so I didn't know if maybe there was any interest in doing that again. And if not, that's fine, but I was missing it and wanted to ask.
Okay.
Would you be willing to manage it, lead it?
We're getting to my shop now.
Well, no, I mean, somebody has to come up with what the challenge is each month, and would you be willing to take that on?
We need a theme.
Yeah. All you have to do, I mean, all you have to do.
Only every other month. Maybe only every other month.
There's your challenge for next month if you want to. It's just saying, okay.
Yeah, an ornament. When we did it, the last time I remember doing it, we did, it was like a snowman ornament. And then 1 month, and then I think there was like you had to make something that was 4 inches.
Oh, yeah.
4 by 4.
Yeah.
That's the one I bandsaw my hand on.
I still have that one in my shop too. I think you've got a good point, Janine, but I whatever you come up with, I think it's just a matter of if you got something that you'd like, see people do, or find something you find challenging, it'd be great.
All right, I'll do it. I can. How about no, I should do it every month. It'll make me do it. Okay,
Well, thank you very much, Johnny.
I'll do it.
So for December, it's ornaments, right?
It's an ornament.
Anything you want to add to that to embroider the project, or is
I
just
would
is that
say,
enough?
how about this? It has to have at least a 3-inch finial.
At least a what?
A 3-inch finial.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, it's not a challenge.
So can I use the ones I've already made, or do I have to make another one?
I think you have to make another one.
Oh, okay.
We have this on video recording, right? So like we could catalog which ones he actually showed us.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know if I was recording when he was showing. I started late.
You're not supposed to
Oh,
say
you
that.
didn't have to say that, John.
Jarnine, if you want to, rather than having to compose a list of all the members, if you want to communicate through me, just send me an email and I'll forward it to the group and coordinate it to that extent.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
I would also add, as opposed to having Janine come up with all the ideas, if any of us would have an idea, to please send it along to Janine to include in the schedule.
There you go.
Unless you really want to come up with all the ideas.
No, we don't. Yeah, we can all send you stuff. We just need somebody to be in charge of it and
Okay.
take responsibility for it. And if you
I
do
can do
that,
that.
it'll be great fun.
I can do that.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're ready.
And this is a lesson on why you never bring up subjects in the business, because you might end up doing more than you planned on.
Amen. All right.
How clubs work.
Fine.
I know.
Let it be a lesson to you.
Okay, I think we're ready to hand it over to Dave. Thank you very much, Dave, for bringing us the presentation tonight on boxes.
I hope it's okay. We'll find out.
Let me say, as he begins, I'm going to be managing the share, and I'm going to try and do it from his Word doc, because I think that'll work best. But if it's not working for you, you got to holler, because I don't know what you're seeing. So Dave, I'm going to go to the first page of this right now, okay?
And
Okay.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to jump off, but this is recorded, right? I printed out the document,
Yeah.
but I'll be able to watch the demo.
Yes, the demo will be posted as a recording.
Great, fantastic. Okay, thank you.
John, while I'm doing this, can I do a recording also?
I'll give you the recording.
Okay.
I think you probably can. I'm going to record it on my computer, not on the cloud.
Okay.
And now you ought to be seeing the top is the top boxes,
Yeah.
and you ought to be able to see it rolling, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Good day. You are on. I'll roll the screen whenever you say.
Okay. Well, first of all, all of you are getting a copy of this. In fact, there's going to be an additional PDF coming out. I sent John another document similar to this with a few more photos on it. About 4 years ago, some guy named Ted Rasmussen taught me how to do boxes. I think, I don't want to give his age away, but he was probably like 10 years old at the time or something like that. And these are not,
4
yeah.
Is that 20 years?
That's 80 years ago. So
80.
Wow, I didn't realize you were 90 already, Ted.
There you
Yes,
go.
I feel like it too after that.
Anyways, these are not eloquent boxes like you're going to see from Angelo or John or Ted or something like that, or Ray Simmons. They're just boxes, but they're easy things to do. They're not too difficult. They are things that new people could do. No big deal. Now, in the first one, on the first page, you can see I do have one of the tops that spins. and they all have faces on them. So if I'm making them for kids, basically for the guys, they have a face on them. And if I'm making them for the girls or women, they have the acorn top and the black walnut on it. So what I do is I make the top first, and if we can go down to the next one, you can see that the top surface here is facing towards the tailstock, and and you'll see pictures of this later. The spinner part of the top is towards the drive. The reason we're doing it that way, or I'm doing it that way, is I want to be able to make the nose, and I want the surface to be nice and smooth, so I can get a better surface on the top of the top if I do it that way. So the document has some rough ideas of the size. Now I'm talking about maybe a 1.75 inches for the diameter of the top, and the box height itself is only like 1.75 inches to 2 inches high. It's not very high. They're just small boxes. Now, I've given many of these boxes away. In fact, one of the boxes my daughter gave away to somebody in Chicago just last night. My other daughter gave one to a friend in Baltimore area. And so what I found out is the kids that get the boxes, what I have is, if it's for a newborn child, I put the child's name, full name and birth date on the bottom of the spinner. If it's for one of the kids, one of the boys, for the girls ones, and here you can see right here, you can see these, you can see that I have the tailstock holding it up, and then I have the drive towards the point of the spinner. And in the first photo, you can see my parting tool. I use the corner edge of my parting tool to put a couple of rings on the bottom of the spinner so that I can use that as the guide to put the child's full name and birth date. And then on the top part, when I'm doing the face, I want to have some type of a guide to where I'm going to put the mouth and the eyes. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple of pencil marks on that, and then I'll just use a artist's eraser to get rid of the pencil marks. And then before I take it off, I finish the nose, the knob on top. I smooth that out. And that knob is usually, at most, it's like a 1/2 inch diameter. Most of them are more like 3/8 inch diameter. I want it heavy enough so that it won't break off when the top is being spun. And what I found out is, for some of the older kids I gave these tops to, they'd ask their parents to spin the top, and eventually they got old enough they could spin the top themselves, and they got a big kick out of it. So for the guys, the boys, I like to leave the one with the face on because I think it's something that they would probably keep and play around with. But for the girls, if we scroll down a little more to the next photo, right there, these are ones that I normally would give away to a girl, because I figure once they get beyond a certain age, they probably wouldn't want the box if it had a funny looking face on top. So, a lot of my relatives, sister-in-laws and nieces and all kind of people, daughters, they all have the box that's made of a lighter color wood on the bottom, and then a piece of black walnut. And usually I put a design with a decorating elf. I'll put a design on, and then I'll put the acorn on top. And if you're fooling around making acorns for these things and you have a piece of maple on, you might as well make some extra ones, because acorns, because you may use them. That's why they're sitting there. The spalted one in the background, I had quite a few spalted ones. The relatives all got all the good ones. So that one spalted one in the back looks pretty nice. But like I said, some of the really nice ones, relatives have them. I've never sold one of these. I've given away many of them. I've given away 3 of them just within the last 2 weeks. Let me go to my screen for a moment. Can you go back to just my screen? Me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, I can do this later. All right.
Well, here you are.
Okay. So if you take a look at the top, generally the top would fit on the piece of wood, and you don't want any play in this. It's very little play you want in it. Good, but you don't want it tight. You don't want it tight for a couple of reasons. The child should be able to lift it off easily, and if the top is put on upside down, you want to make sure that the child can get it off or an adult can get it off. I can just take it and it easily comes off. It's no big deal. But you don't want it so loose that it's like it's a sloppy made piece. Now, the reason that I make the top first is that so when I put the top on, I can make sure that there's very little gap here and the top isn't sunk down too deeply that it looks like it's poorly made. One last thing.
I'm going to go back to your
Back to me for a moment.
Okay, you're still on Spotlight.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I got the wrong Spotlight.
That's all right.
There you go.
Now normally, I get this here. I can show it to you here. Where's that?
There.
Normally.
Closer to your face. Put it beside your face.
Yeah. Normally, I would use something like a Smartie, something like that to put the name on. I want a permanent pen to put it on. And I might put it on so it's facing this way. However, I have to make one of these tomorrow, give it away to a coworker because she has her first great grandson. So I'm thinking that what I'm going to do in this particular one is I'm going to put the name on so it's facing this way so that this actually can go on the lid upside down and then the name and birth date is showing up. So I'm going to try that. So that's the top is a top box. It's just a slightly different play. There's many places in many magazines you can see stuff about the top of the top box. Any comments on that?
What kind of age groups do you make this for? What kind of age group do you anticipate?
Most of them have gone to newborns, so that the parents get a big kick out of it because they get this box. It has the child's name on the box. It has the birth date on the box. And then as the child gets a little older, they can play with the box and they can also have their parents spin the box. Although I have given them away to some older kids only because it was some occasion or I don't know, it's just a relative. So I gave one to one of my boss's sons when I worked at the community college a few months ago before COVID. And the kid got a real big kick out of it. He was probably 5-6 years old. And I know when he first got to the point where he could spin the top, my boss emailed me and said, oh, he can spin the top himself now and he keeps his quote treasures in it. So
that's neat.
So let's go down to the next one is I brought this in to show you one time.
Dave, before you go on, what do you use for a finish on those boxes? 'Cause
I
kids-
use only wipe on poly.
Okay,
So the top I was showing you, I have the top of the top completely done, the one I was just showing you. But the bottom I put nothing on because I wanted to keep that available for giving away to a newborn, which just came up today as far as a
okay,
coworker having a first great grandson. So I wipe on poly on almost everything, even
okay,
bowls and
thank you.
stuff. So this is, I had one of these in at the club, I don't know, sometime last year. It's a walnut box. It's made of black walnut. The real key to doing this is making sure that you have it the appropriate size. Again, what I do is I make the top first. So the top is the open end of the top is towards the tailstock, and then the drive end is the pointed part. So once I get the inside of that lid done, and I keep everything very thick in this case because I'm going to put some very deep grooves into the whole thing. So then I part it off, and I leave plenty of space when I part it off, because what I want to do is I want to take a nail or a ice pick or something, and I want to put a small hole, not hole, but mark where I can remount. When I remount the whole thing with the two pieces together, the lid on the bottom part, when I remount them, I want to bring up my tailstock and hold the top against the bottom of the walnut. The reason I want to do that is I want to finish the shape of the top of the walnut. And I also want to keep that tight against the bottom part when I'm doing all the grooves with the iron, burning the grooves in. And I'll use a pretty tight friction fit for the most part, so that I can put the grooves in the very top point when I back off the tailstock. Then I'll lift off the entire top, keeping in mind that I already put in the grooves on almost the whole thing, except the very bottom, because I haven't parted the bottom of the bottom off yet. And one of the keys to doing this is how you're going to line up all those grooves. And the trick is to put kind of a key somewhere, and you can see that in the document. You put in kind of a key somewhere where you have a couple of lines or a couple of dots, so you can easily turn the pieces of wood and find out where they're going to match up real easily. And so that's kind of a trick to do. So once you get the top done, you take off the top. You go ahead and cut out the bottom of the part, the hole in the bottom, groove that out with, I just use a round nose generally. And again, the burning has already taken place on almost all of it except the very, very bottom. That's why I added the third picture, the picture on the right there. You can see that all I did is I continued the burning marks all the way to the very bottom, just like an actual walnut would look like. And again, the walnut, even though it's black walnut, I didn't think it was dark enough. So I went ahead and I used a trick I think I got from Doug, and that was Indian ink. And make sure you use gloves, as Doug said one time, whoever told us about the Indian ink, make sure you use gloves. You don't want to get the Indian ink on your fingers. Anyways, what I do is I'll put a layer of Indian ink on and wipe it off real quickly. If you leave it on too much then, or too long, it's going to get just too dark. So it's a box, but it's something different. Maybe something, somebody hasn't seen. Is it hard to make? No. Just like the other boxes above, it's not hard to make. I hope this would encourage new people or even students that Jolene has, might encourage her to try something like that. Let's go on to the next one. Any questions on that particular one? Eggs. Probably most of you have made eggs. Again, what's different about these eggs? Well, not much. I make the eggs, and again, I also make them, I specifically make them for newborn kids. I put their full name on the inside, I put their birth date on the inside, and then I use Tombow markers using basically maple wood and the Tombow markers. I've tried permanent markers. I'm very displeased with permanent markers. The Tombow markers, I put about 2 or 3 layers of that on. I'll burn rings in that you can see on those, and then I'll put the child's name on. Brady, that one, the blue one with Brady, that was the very first one I made. That was my grandson. He's 4 years old now. He still will walk in the house. I made a couple of them, one he has at home and one he has here. And if he sees the one in the drawer, he'll open up to make sure there's no M&Ms in it. When I give these away, I also indicate to, just as I did with the boxes, the top of the top boxes, I give them a business card that says specifically that you shouldn't use boxes for certain things. You should not put candy in and stuff like that. I do it anyways. And again, the parents that have received them, obviously my 3 grandsons have them, but the parents that have received them, you know, they get a big kick out of it. I do make the bottoms flat. Making the bottoms flat is nice because it'll sit up nicely. Child or even a parent appreciates the fact that they will sit up nicely on their own. You could make a nice perfectly shaped egg and then just make sure the bottom is flat. These pink ones in the back are the laminated woods. I happen to have some of those, so I made some of them laminated. On the left side by the one that's purple, I used a Tombow marker to make the top of the red, top more red than the rest of it.
How do you spell that marker? Tombow?
It's in the document.
Oh, all right.
T-H-O.
It's T-O-M-B-O-W.
T-O-M-B-O-W.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've made eggs before, so. Okay, let's take a look at the acorns. I started making acorns a long time ago, I guess in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. I was a member of, I used to go to Pennsylvania Guild Craft Show shows and other places. The 3 in the top, the 2 lighter colored ones are made of sapele. Way back in the late or early 80s, I used to use Honduras mahogany, but now the sapele, if I can get the sapele, has a beautiful grain. The widest part is about 3 inches. The one in the background is walnut. And what I usually do is, I'll do the top, and then I'll use a dark stain of some sort. A fruit wood stain. And ebony is a little on the dark side. If you use an ebony stain on it, what you want to do is make sure you wipe it off very quickly because you don't want the top to get too dark. All of these seem to have some texturing on them. I do make some without texturing. In somewhere in the, I guess it was back in '88, I was out at Meadowbrook. I don't know if you remember Meadowbrook Farmers Market up on 896 and 30. I was there doing a show. Ted was there. I had some of these out and was selling them. And came up and asked if they could buy a few of them and have me do a write-up on how they were made, and they were going to put it in a magazine, and they were going to pay me obviously for the acorns they bought, and they were going to give me, I can't remember, $150, $200 for the write-up. And that was just an enormous amount of money then. And so I said something to Ted. I said, you know, people want to know, put this in a magazine, know how they're made. And I believe it was Ted that said, well, anybody that knows how to do wood turning can figure out how they're made. He said, take the money. So that's what I did. Now, another key with these, I did show these at one of the clubs. One of the keys is that you need to keep the bottoms flat, except for the small point at the top, on the very bottom. You really want that bottom very flat. The reason you want the bottom very flat is so that they stand up on the edge like they do. If you round them off like a regular acorn would look like, then they will not stand up. You'd have to put them in something, or put them in a stand or something like that. And as a jewelry box or a treasure box or a decorative box, it's just not as practical in my opinion. It's just, if you have to have a second piece to hold it up, that's crazy. So
Dave,
to get that bottom very, very flat, except for the small point on the bottom.
Dave, this is Alan. What size do you make these acorns?
The top diameter is 3 inches.
Okay.
So the instructions have some stuff on it about the size. If you take a look at the walnut one in the background, you'll notice that it's not as deep. The bottom is not as tall as the tube in the front. You kind of go by how you want it to look. I make some a little deeper, and I make some that are more shallow. No two acorns are alike, so there is kind of a small trick to getting the point, the knob on the top. If we scroll down there, we can find out how to do that. On the inside of the lid, it's nice to do a decorative part in there. I just used a decorating elf to make a little design in the top there. That comes in handy. So let's scroll down a little bit more. Oh, back up a tad, right there. When I'm making the lid, I'm going to make the lid so that the opening of the lid is on the tailstock side, and the top of the lid is on the drive side. So you're going to hollow that out. And if you want, put a decorative work inside, like I showed in the photo up above. If you're going to texture this, even if you're not going to texture it, you need to finish that very part that's sticking out, that's part of the bottom of the top of the acorn lid. The reason you want to do that is once you fit the lid to the bottom, you're not going to have space or another time to work on that portion of it. So you need to go ahead and finish that portion before you go ahead and part that off and do anything else with it. Let's scroll down a little bit. Right there. When I'm doing this, what I do is I just make a knob at the top. It comes kind of straight out as a V, and then an opposing V. Then I want the knob towards the part of the top. I want that to be off center a little bit. You could use a Dremel tool to put a notch in there like that. I just use a round file, and I file some of it off when I do that. And then if you go down to the next picture, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take I just use a decorating elf, and I do the top of it, being very careful not to hit that knob part. And then I use a disc sander to kind of put another edge on the top of that very top, the knob on the top, the stem on the top, just to make it look like a stem. You'll see that in another picture. But when you're putting these two pieces together, when you're putting the top and the bottom together, as you start working on the bottom part and you're going to put the lid on, you've got to make sure that that lid is fitting snugly, and the portion of the bottom is sanded to the finish point, because once you take that lid off, you're not going to have room to work on that very portion of the part, the tenon that's going into the lid. You've got to do your fitting and sanding right then and there. So you're going to take the lid off and you're going to work on the bottom part of the acorn. You're going to shape it the distance and height that you want. You can decide on that. But again, once you get to the very bottom, before you part that off, you want that bottom to be as flat as possible, because otherwise it will not stand up. I remember when I did I brought one of these in, I brought some of these in and talked to the club about it. And Mike Freitag went home and made one. And then the next time I saw him at the meeting, he said, he said, I made one and I didn't make the bottom very flat, but I was real happy with the way it came out. But he said it wouldn't stand up. So, and then somebody else at the club was asking about it. So I brought in a piece of, I think it was Honduras mahogany or sapele, and gave it to someone. I can't remember who it was. They went home and made one. But I just used a decorating elf. And there you can see that the flattened part on the stem is, I just made that with the sanding disc. Any questions on an acorn? By the way, when I carve out the cavity in the bottom portion, you could use the Forstner bit, one of the real big Forstner bits. And I've done that, but I found out that just gouging out with a round nose or some of the other tools is just as fast as fooling around with the Forstner bit. Keep the bottom flat. No questions? I was out in the utility shed going through some crap, and I saw this big tin, and it was Charles Chips tin or something like that. And I opened it up and I noticed there were a couple of oil cans in. I thought, oh man, everything's round on an oil can. So I decided to make an oil can. So I made the oil can out of 3 pieces. The entire bottom is 1 piece, and then the connecting part, and then the finial, which is the spout. And as soon as I took these pictures, as far as it being a box, I thought, oh crap, that's a poor design. The problem is that you have a 1-inch hole to put things in and you can't put much in. So what I decided to do is make the next one out of 4 pieces. The very bottom plate is separate from the rest. So if you go back up with just a tad, I didn't have, go down to the next one, please, John, right there. I didn't have a piece of wood that was thick enough for the bowl. So what I did is I glued a piece of wood to it, and then I turned my tenon on that thinner pieces of wood and reversed it and chucked it up, and I made the bowl. On the first one I made, I had some tear out. I was kind of disappointed with that because I tried to use some of Ron Sheehan's method about just taking a good sharp tool and kind of shaving off the part, but I ended up doing some sanding because I didn't have the skill or didn't have it sharp enough or something like that. You can see that I'm holding that on with the tailstock. All I've done here was the outside of the bowl. Let's go down one more. There's the inside of the bowl. To reduce the amount of shaving, the tear out, I decided to use a carbide tip to do the inside of the bowl. And that worked out pretty well. I had very little tear out, didn't have any problem. Here's a key to the whole thing. I'm going to remount this whole thing on the bottom. And I also want to bring the tailstock up. So what I did is I drilled a pilot hole into the wood before I parted it off. That way I had a good center point for which to bring up the tailstock to hold it on when I'm doing some other work on it. That was a good thing to do. Let's go down a little further right there. Here I'm making the bottom. In this particular one, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it later, I decided to make this tenon a curve to kind of fit into the curved part. That was a dumb move. I did get a good tight fit on that. But the third one I made, I'll show you at the very end. I went straight in and made the tenon go straight in, and it was a lot easier to do that. Let's go down a little further. Here I'm bringing up the tailstock. I've already fit that on the bottom plate. It's going to be the bottom plate. By having the tailstock up there, I can clean off that very top portion of the bowl, get it nice and smooth. And then that's by using that pilot hole I put on. The pilot hole was a good idea. I'm glad I thought of that right away. And then I used a Forstner bit and I put in a 1-inch hole there. There is the bottom part. I've now cut into the very bottom. I'm going to part that off and smooth the bottom out nice and smooth and get that to fit properly. So let's go down one more. Okay. Then I'm going to make the part that goes in between, the middle part that's connecting the bowl and the bottom plate and the finial, which is the spout. And if you look at a oil can, you do have some texturing because the top screws on to the bowl. So I needed to give the illusion that I had that, and I had to make sure that I did the texturing before the piece was too small, because if I did the texturing in the second drawing, it'd probably rip out part of the wood. So I did the texturing first, and then I went ahead and I cut it down to the size I need. The tenon's a 1-inch tenon. I have the measurements for the other ones, and then I needed to give the illusion of some threads on this. And one of the things I thought about was I'll put some pencil lines on there, and I'll kind of, on an angle, draw something that looked like threads. And I decided, oh, the hell with it. I just put 3 or 4 grooves on it, and it looks like threads, and it saved me a lot of work. And then I went ahead and I drilled my hole in that middle part, that middle portion for the spout and the finial. When I'm gluing it together, I want to make sure everything lines up and the finial is not crooked or anything like that. So what I did is I put a little bit of glue on everything, and I simply put it back on the lathe and turned it on real slow to make sure everything was lining up perfectly. And I had the glue mark in the finial, which is the spout, and the part that goes into the bowl.
Dave, is the spout hollow?
That was a good idea.
Is the spout hollow?
No. But because of the tailstock holding the spout, or when I made the spout, there is a hole at the very top of that, and it gives the illusion that it's hollow, but it is not hollow. The other thing I did was that I used some CA glue on the top portion of the spout to strengthen it so there's less likely chance of it breaking. And on the very final one here on the far right, you can see in that particular one, instead of going in on an angle, I went straight in to the bowl. And that way my tenon and plate on the bottom is nice and straight, gives a nice friction, and a lot easier to do than the one on the left where I tried to make the curve fit the bowl. So that turned out pretty well. I mean, I have it looking like a jewelry box in a ring stand. You could use it as that, or two nephews, one in Boulder, Colorado, has his own machine shop, and then another one in Ashtabula that goes to Erie every day and works in a machine shop. And I thought certainly one of them would get a kick out of having something like this, even on their desk, especially a guy that has his own shop where clients come in and order stuff. So I'll probably give one to him. Here's a couple of cupcakes. The bottom, I believe, is some type of, I think it's sapele or mahogany. I made some of these. My daughter was into baking. She still is. And she has the better looking one. If you take a look at the lid on both of them, you can see that I tried to put some curve on the overlap so that it looks like the frosting is going over the cupcake.
Mm-hmm.
Particular one, I made the bottom first, and then I just used a V parting tool to put in the grooves so that kind of gave the illusion of a cupcake. If I were doing it again, I would, the maple top I'd make a lot taller, probably put a spiral, try to carve a spiral in it so it looks more like frosting, and maybe put a cherry on top. Here you can see I have two grooves. I have the inside carved out for the one portion of the lid, and then I have the outside, the same diameter of the largest part of the bottom of the cupcake, so that I can have that overlapping and also have the frosting flowing over the bottom of the top of the lid. Again, that's patience. These are not hard to make. Encourages especially new people to try some of them. Stump is a stump box. I brought one of these in. I guess this is the one I brought in. Again, you would probably, when you're doing your burning, you'd probably want to put some type of a key in so that you can match up all the grooves. I made the top part. I made again the smooth would be towards the tailstock. I mean towards the drive end, and then I grooved out the top of that. When I made the rest of that, what I did is I made something that the bottom part looked like the bottom of a cone, a frustrum, if you know what a frustrum is. So it's wider at the bottom and then not so wide at the top. And then I just used a chisel, a strong wood chisel, and I cut out most of the bottom, and then I lined the whole thing up. And I did the burning while I was using the tailstock to hold the whole thing on. And then I parted off, when I parted off the top, I wanted the top and the bottom to be as smooth as possible. So you had quite a distinction between the lid itself and the wood burn part. This is the first one I did. I was not satisfied with the dimensions. I think the height was too big for that. I think I have something in the document that says that probably ought to make the diameter of the top about 65 to 70% of the entire height, so it looks more like a stump. Any
Dave, would you consider making one like from a tree branch so that the top, instead of having growth rings as they appear there, they'd be concentric like a stump would be?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Try anything. You bet. Now, actually, the one I'd like to make next would be a larger one. You can see there's a quarter sitting there in the right, the picture in the right. I'd like to make it bigger, and then I'd like to put a door carved in the bottom part of the stump, and I'd call it probably a gnome home. So that's my project I didn't get to yet, but
Dave, is that drilled out or turned out?
no, it's turned out. It's turned.
Nice.
And let's see. Oh, a Saturn box. I got some plywood from Mike Freitag. The type of plywood they use for bandsaw work, scroll saw work, and stuff like that. So in this particular case, I made the top first. What I did is I hollowed out the inside of the top. Again, the hollow part where you're cutting it out is towards your drive stock, tail stock, and the drive end is at the top. And once you make that and part it off, again, you're going to leave extra wood because you want to use the tailstock to bring that up to round off the top once you get to the point where you're going to put the two pieces together. The tenon has to be long so that you can put your rings on, your plywood on, and you can make it too long in the beginning. That's fine, because you can always take more off and you can't put more on. So once you go ahead and make your bottom part with your tenon and you put the top on, and again, once I part off the very top, what I did is I took the top and I made a semicircle on a piece of paperboard, and then I could cut that semicircle out and I can use that as a guide or a template to make the round the top part off so I have a nice hemisphere. Then I can use that same thing when I do the bottom part. So I just made a stand. The stand is concave on the very top so that the Saturn will sit on it. Again, once a child in school starts learning about the planets, this is from my grandson. I make a couple more yet. And all I did is I used those Tombow colors. And once I glued that plywood onto the piece and the bottom part is still on the lathe, to keep it on, I put a small amount of glue around the very bottom of the part that goes around the tenon. And then I actually brought the top part and tailstock up and held it on that way while the glue dried, hours, and come back later. And then again, it's still on the lathe. And I put the Tombow colors on while it's still on the lathe that's spinning at a very small speed, low speed. Then I finished the bottom off. Any comments on that? Again, you can see there's a quarter there. You can see the size of it. It's not very big, but another box that certainly Jolene could have her kids make in the shop, stuff like that. Here, these are actually boxes too. The lids do come off. They're very small. And for hanging them, I used a fish hook. I took a long shanked fish hook and I cut off the hook part, and then I just epoxied that into the top of the finial. And the tallest one is only about 4 inches high. And I don't know if I have anything else or not. Is that it? Yeah. Also, with any boxes I give away, I have it on the business card that you shouldn't use them for facial creams or shouldn't use them for any kind of candy or anything like that.
Why not, Dave? I mean, I do all the time. I use them for everything.
Well, most of the boxes I make that go to kids, they usually have M&Ms or some candy in, but I leave that with the warning for the parents. And so I think these are just little things that you can make and give away. I really don't have a gauge on how many I've made and given away. I would say all my nieces and my niece-in-laws and sister-in-laws and kids and friends, they have acorns, they have the top is a top box, especially the women have the ones with and I say nieces and nephews, I mean, these are people that are in their 50s and 60s. So they really like the boxes, especially the spalted maple ones with the walnut top and the acorn. I haven't documented that an acorn is a symbol of prosperity. And you look at old pieces of furniture, acorns or finials on bedposts, and you even see them in finials and mailbox stands and stuff like that even today.
Oh,
So
Dave,
that's all, folks.
Dave, the last ones you showed, the Christmas ornament birdhouses, the white birch effect on the bottom, was that an actual white birch branch?
Yes.
Or, oh, okay.
Yes.
I was wondering how you bleached it and painted it to give it that effect.
No, it was white birch. However, if you have a piece of wood with the bark on, and you give it a very light spray of white with a spray can, not heavy, just so it's kind of coming down from the top, it gives the illusion that it's a chunk of tree that has snow on it. And
Yeah.
you can do the same thing. And again, with those, you can make them any size you want. You can make a large one that you can hang somewhere outside from a tree or wherever. I like to use spray paint for the finial. I find that it gives a nice contrast of color and it doesn't fade or anything like that.
any
So I
other?
have a question for you, Dave. I made a bowl the other day that I actually made an oil can, and the bottom of it is so thin. Have you tried to make an oil can and the can thinness on the bottom of your oil can?
Well,
Maybe not, but
yeah, the oil can was, well, Ray Simmons will tell you, if you're making something and you make a drawing or something like that, and your item doesn't come out, your turning doesn't come out the same as your drawing, you weren't successful. Well, I didn't have a drawing or anything. I had an oil can sitting right in front of me. And some of the little things that I did with making the pilot hole and doing the texturing ahead of time, I was real happy with the first try. It came out nice. And
it was very good. I liked it. Very. And all I can say is that, according to Ray, I guess I've never had a successful turning then.
Well, obviously, if you've seen some of his boxes and stuff, I mean, they're really something.
Oh, yeah.
And I do want to thank a lot of people. I saw John playing around bringing boxes in, and that kind of encouraged me to get back into making more boxes. And of course, Ted showed me years ago how to make boxes, and I guess that was maybe a late 70s, early 80s, something like that. And I really want to thank everybody that's on the board, and especially John, for putting all these programs together. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Dave. A lot of creativity there, and thanks for all those notes, because there's no way I'd remember everything you said.
Good.
So Dave, had for a while there, weren't turning. Have you been doing it more since with the COVID and stuff, being out in your shop, or having more time for it?
Not really that much more. I guess I am doing a small amount more. Just busy with grandkids and busy with some other stuff they're doing. Yeah, I guess I'm trying some new things. A lot of different things I want to try. I have some nice pieces of wood out in the shed that I want to do some more bowls and
Cool.
just play around. You know, all I have is a Delta mini lathe, and you know, I'm very pleased at getting done on it. You know, I'm not one of your big boys.
You don't need to be a big boy to play with the big boys.
By the way, I sent John part of the Dennis the Menace cartoon that was in the newspaper on Sunday. Some little kid was saying his dad has all these tools, and he says, and he also has a lathe. And I sent to John telling him, I wonder how many people got on Google and tried to find out what a lathe was.
Dave, what's your work?
What's what?
What is your work? What's your profession, your career?
Oh, I was a math teacher.
At what level?
I taught the good and bad and ugly from 9th grade all the way to 12th grade. I'm pretty happy with, I was at Mannheim Central. I started preparing kids for the advanced placement calculus test 8 years before they had an actual program. I'd walk into the intro calculus class the first day and say, okay, here's a story if you want to take the AP test. I can prepare you for it. If you're interested, here's all that's in it. And if you're still interested, go to the back of the room, because you're the one that'll be advanced and prepared for the test. So I did that. And then in 1990, I started teaching part-time for HAC in Lancaster. So I did that, and actually did that until January, COVID.
Thank you.
Wow.
I retired a year early. I just decided to go out because I had broken my hip and I was hobbling around and didn't get it replaced. So I only had 39 years in at Mannheim Central. I left a year.
Wow.
That's long enough to teach some of the kids of your student.
Yeah. That's interesting. Years ago, the guild used to do some things at Park City, and I guess it was in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. We were doing some shows down there, and I was doing a demo, and somebody from Catholic High said, my grandfather had all these tools and I inherited these lathe tools. Would you teach me how to use them? And I thought he's just putting me on because he was with a bunch of kids, and turned out he wasn't. And that was a good experience.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Thanks for your attention, everyone.
Thank you, Dave. Very
you, Dave.
informative.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dave.
Good show.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, we'll end this meeting. It's been a good one. Thanks for all of your contributions.
See y'all later.
Yep.
Bye.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care, everybody. See you all
Yep,
tomorrow
good
morning.
night.
Who shows up?
Right.